Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hormone Helper podcast. I'm Coach Andrew, your hormone helper from Fit for All Fitness. I personally coach over 1,600 men and women to help better understand their hormones so they can lose weight and get their metabolism back on track. With this podcast, you're going to hear from me and my special guests about everything from metabolism to thyroid to weight loss. And we even talk a little bit of sexy time as we chat to spread more knowledge thick like butter on your hormones. If you're ready to learn, I'm ready to share, so let's do this. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Hormone Helper podcast. And in today's episode, we have the very lovely Mike Morrison and Julie Jarvie. They own two F45 locations, one of them in Ancaster and an F45 Training in Stoney Creek Mountain. So Julie is the resident personal trainer and fitness instructor on the team. And these two have always been passionate about their own fitness, nutrition, athletics, and just overall healthy, active lifestyle. And for that reason, when they found F45 Training in California 5 years ago, they immediately knew that this was something that they wanted to bring back to the community and start helping others make life-altering changes and improvements. So I'm very excited to have you guys here. Thanks for being on the podcast. How you guys both doing?
Good. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Appreciate you having us.
Excellent. Well, I'm super pumped to chat pretty much on anything health and fitness. And I can already feel kind of the energy that's going to come out from this call because I know that you guys essentially are in great alignment when it comes to health and wellness. I am curious though, what made you choose to go into fitness coaching and help people in this way? Because like Julie's got a different story than you, Mike. So I don't know which one of you wants to start first, but what made you want to go into this?
That's a big question. In a nutshell, I felt like my health was always a second priority to work. And my dream state was if I could merge the two, then work might also not feel like work. And I felt like I was always straying away from doing what I was supposed to be doing in the corporate world to help friends or family or whatever with nutrition, health, fitness, whatever it may be. So when the opportunity presented itself, for us to be our own bosses and own a gym, we were pretty passionate about it, and I just sort of saw all the stars aligning and what it could mean for us. So decided to take the plunge, and I'm sure Mike can share more about from his perspective why he wanted to do it, because it is a little different as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, what it comes down to is a combination of my almost obsession with athletics and sports. That's definitely where my background kind of lends itself to the fitness world. I played numerous sports growing up, and every single one of those sports, the rep team or whatever level team I was playing on would have some sort of dryland training, and just outside the arena or the field kind of development. And so that combined with the fact that I am an accountant by trade, but I've never really felt like I fit the mold of your stereotypical accountant. And so I'm always looking for ways to do things that don't kind of follow the path of a standard accountant. So I guess the combination of both of our stories kind of led us to be very inspired by the F45 model, and immediately we knew that was something we wanted to pursue.
I think that that's incredible. And I'm always intrigued as to how people get into this industry. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they see the benefits themselves. They're into it. They love it. They start to preach it. And then it's like, hey, you know what? This is something that we could probably be telling other people. And it's just so interesting how you guys are from wildly different, like corporate, accounting, and people are like, oh, random. Now it's just like, hey, cool. We're in fitness, right? But it goes to show you, it's like, regardless of where you come from, you can always end up in some type of healthy state, right? Like it's not a separate thing. It's a part of your lifestyle. So I definitely like the fact that you guys are here and now we get to talk about this good stuff. So I'd like to get into some exercise stuff because that's what we're here for. Most of our podcast listeners, they're pretty health conscious, but I get messages all the time saying that oh, I tend to have a hard time getting exercises down pat or fitting it into my routine. So what are some of the reasons that you guys come across especially at your F45 locations, as to like why someone isn't working out regularly?
I mean, I can start to field that one and let Julie kind of fill in the blanks because I'm sure I'll miss some stuff. But um, from the exposure that I have to the gym, I'm not as front facing as Julie is on a day to day. But I definitely hear, people, knowing that I was from a corporate background, I definitely hear them out when they say that work gets in the way, time constraints, family, obviously, just like not able to fit it into their busy schedule. We all lead very busy lives, and unfortunately, not everyone is prioritizing their health in the way that I think and we think everyone should. And so I think I mentioned it to you as part of like, our discussion around what we could chat about today. And I just find that working out is such a crucial part of, how you can be successful in those things that ironically are making you too busy to work out and to exercise and to get strong and fit. So that's definitely the biggest reason I think we hear. And Julie, I think you can probably speak to some of the more secondary reasons you probably hear on a day to day.
Yeah, I think it like just comes down to a lot of what you were saying, Mike, like in terms of prioritization and then finding something that's the right fit for you. Because if you're someone that's time strapped, don't have an education or a passion to be doing research on which movement patterns and things you should be programming for yourself, how on earth are you going to be motivated to be like, yeah, at 8 o'clock at night when I'm tired and I've worked a long day, I am going to just pull myself off the couch, go program something for myself, spend 2 hours in the gym, and then I'm going to feel accomplished. Like, those people are the majority. Like, that's how most of us are. There's very few of us that are like super excited to wake up and be like, I'm going to create my like exercise program for myself. And so I think that that's what like stops a lot of people is they don't know what to do and they don't know how to figure out what what is the answer. So they just don't. It's like a path of least resistance almost. They know they should do
Mhm.
it, but then how do I do it? Where do I start? What do I do? You ultimately need a professional typically to tell you what you should be doing for you. And that's the hard part.
It's so crazy because with this world that we have now with so much information, you figure that with all the information with things like, I'm sure you hear from your clients like MyFitnessPal, bodybuilding.com, whatever, right? There's so many things that really, it's almost like it's too much. Like
Yeah.
it's like over fire hose, and now people are like, I don't even know where to even start at this point. I have no idea what's going on, what the heck works anymore, what doesn't work. And people just keep hopping off of stuff. But I also think too, like that's where it becomes really discouraging, especially like if someone's going to muster the effort, I think, to start like the first time and then they fail, then it's like it makes it significantly harder for them to do that. So,
Yeah.
and I kind of see the differences when you guys are talking about the like whether it's lack of time, unable to kind of fit into the schedule, because like, you know, Mike sees it from a back end perspective, but Julie, you see it from like a front end of a coach, right?
Yeah,
Where like
for sure.
I'm sure you can see firsthand like your regulars that are coming in and out, right? Like your people typically, are they like exercising 3 times a week, 5 times a week? Like how often are they in there regularly? The ones who are like, I'm in this for the long haul.
Yeah, I'd say on average, when we look at our whole membership base, it is 3 times on average. But we also have people who, are on membership plans or things that are designed for them to only come in once a week because they
Mhm.
are doing other things outside the gym. So you kind of have your people that are on a membership plan to be there 3 to 6 times a week are showing up 3 to 6 times a week. And I think the craziest thing about gyms is how scary they are for people. And when we look at our membership base, it's pretty wild. Over 80% of our members have never had a consistent like membership in the last 5 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
So,
we are very much so the population of people who don't know what to do. And we get to kickstart that like passion in them
hmm.
because someone's going to tell them what to do when they get there. And as long as someone handles that for them, they are motivated. They just have to show up, they book an appointment, essentially like they book a class and it's appointment in their calendar, and then they just show up and they do it. So we do have like a unique subset in our world, in our community, just because of what we offer. Yeah, most people think going into our gym, it's just going to be a whole bunch of crazy fit people. And we just have people that are passionate about making a change. And it could have been something they maybe should have done 10 years ago, or they've always been doing it. But yeah, most people have never had a membership.
And that makes me want to talk also about like what you kind of mentioned there, Andrew, is the abundance of information that's out there, but it's almost kind of taken a turn for the worse, where it's over information, and you couple that with social media and a lot of influencers out there. A lot of fitness professionals like to harp on the fitfluencers that are out there, and say like, oh, how bad it is that there's so many of them that don't know what they're talking about, and et cetera, et cetera. I think we personally don't really think it's a problem per se. It's just a matter of, some people will get discouraged because they'll start following someone who they find to be influential in their own lives, and for whatever reason, and they want to be like them, but maybe they're not realizing how much effort it truly takes to get to that state. It's not going to be as simple as those 10 exercises that is on their post for the day. But I don't discourage anyone from, if that's motivating to them, and to see someone on social media as inspiration for them, that's great. I'd rather see someone getting off the couch and doing something, even if it's not coming to an F45. I want to see people exercising and doing something for their own health. And that's a starting point. Whether it's effective or not, it's still just getting them in the door of fitness. And so for that, I applaud all the influencers out there who are able to kind of use their platform to make that change in so many different lives.
I think it's so interesting because when people like initially start activity, most of them do it for vanity, where they're like, I want to look so good. Like, I'm tired of looking the way I do. I want to change this physical outside and be in a place where I can feel comfortable with myself. And like a little vanity, okay, that's fine. That's kind of the push to improvement. But then it gets to a point where after you've done it, like you said, like where those influencers stop having that hold on you, and you're recognizing like, wow, this actually makes me feel good, and I'm starting to do this regularly. And then it almost transforms into this, like, this is where I get to relieve my stress, or where I get to have kind of that safe space that's there, right? But I find it interesting that you guys are still encountering these people that are really scared going into a place to train. So like outside, those like typical, which hopefully are few far between at this point, those bro guys that are in the mirror flexing like crazy. What is it you think about the actual gym atmosphere period that's really intimidating for people going in for activity?
I don't know. It's people they're in such a vulnerable state. Like, to your point, if they're getting into it for a vanity purpose, they're not confident at all. They're their least confident self, and they are now having to put their hand up and say, I don't like the way I look. I don't feel good in my own body, and I need help. And like, for anyone to say those words, whether it's your partner or a complete stranger, because you're walking into a place you've never been, that is the scariest thing to ever say. And like, that's honestly, me being on the receiving end, my favorite class to be at. Like, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, because when that person walks in the door, I just want to change their entire mental like thought patterns in that very moment of like, what is this space going to be? And like, our goal, my goal, the team's goal is like, it's a safe space. It's a space that we're going to make you confident. It's a space that you're going to learn, and you're going to grow, and you're going to realize how much more you can do than you thought. And that stuff carries forward, right? To your whole point of like, you start with vanity, but then you realize, oh, wow, I can do so much more than I thought I could. I can now pick up my kids. I have energy to run around with them. I'm in a better mood. But the number of times I hear that, potentially from like partners, where they take a week off the gym, they're away, and their partner's like, I can't wait for you to go back to the gym because your mood changes. That one always makes me laugh, but it's true. Our mood.
Julia has said that to me, for sure.
Yeah, no, I don't say it to Mike. Yeah, but like mood, sleep, all of it changes, and like that's the best part ever, is being part of that like transformative journey for them. But I think like that is what's so scary, is you're having to raise your hand to a complete stranger and walk into this spooky space that you don't know what it is. And unfortunately, I do think that the gym bro has really created this like aura over what all gyms look like and feel like, when it's not the case. It definitely is in some environments, but it's not always the case.
100%. And it's so funny when you talk about kind of that like layer of accountability that comes on it. It's kind of like, you know, booking a trip or even like signing up for a course or something, right? It's like the moment you do it, the commitment is real. So it's like that's the hardest part, is just that initial like, I just got to show up for the first class.
Yeah.
Right. I just got to make the second one. I got to tell someone, hey, I'll see you at the next session. Because now there's that whole, and that's why I love what you guys do, which is like the whole group accountability thing, where people are like, hey, Tommy, you coming back next Wednesday? And he's like, well, shit, I guess I'm coming back next Wednesday. Right. So it's good.
I'm someone
Now,
that's very driven myself, even as an owner of 2 studios. Like I find that having my closer friends of all the members that are at the studio, I'm close with so many people, but there's certain ones that I message on a more consistent basis and find out when they're going. So that helps push me to get there at a crazy hour of the morning if that's when they like to work out. Whereas I otherwise would never get myself out of bed to do it.
mm-hmm. I think in terms of times of activity, like, and that's probably something that we should talk on as well too. Actually, that's a great question, right? Everybody's trying to find time for their exercise in their routine, right? Is it morning? Is evening the best? What do I do? What would you say is the best for people who are like looking to get started in terms of exercise? Like, where do they kind of slot activity in their schedule, and to what capacity realistically for someone starting?
I honestly think it comes down to what kind of person you are. Are you someone who thrives on routine, and whenever you have a very set regimented routine, is that where you're most successful in the workplace, at home, with like chores and whatnot? Then setting a certain time, maybe that's the morning, because you can get it out of the way and you don't have to feel like you can't do the rest of your day. So making that set time every single week for maybe 5 times a week, as Julie was talking about earlier, and just sticking to that. On the flip side, like, I'm currently not in a role of work, obviously, with owning our own business, where I have a regimented schedule. So I'm in the point where that used to be for me, but now it's a matter of just changing it up, because that actually helps not have things be boring for me, if you know what I mean. So working out with different people and just kind of having every day look a little bit different. I don't get bored of it, and it just feels like it makes the week go by faster, and I can just kind of slot it in wherever it's convenient for me. So I didn't really answer your question, but I think it really depends on the kind of person. I don't know what Julie would say about that.
So I would agree to some extent. Like, sure, if we all could have it our way, when is like an optimal time? It's likely middle of the morning, lunchtime area. But if that's not when it's going to happen, then it's not going to happen. So like, first and foremost, you do it when it is a time that you are going to consistently be able to do it, whether it's morning or night. Don't listen to everyone out there. If you're doing nothing right now, something is better than nothing, bar none.
I like that.
However, can we optimize and change things up over time? Yes. Are there some things that I like to tell people? Like, if you have a very high stress job, would working out and being able to have the benefits of a workout already under your belt for the day help you ride those ups and downs of a very stressful situation? Absolutely. And if you look at the inverse, if you didn't work out in that morning, is it a great outlet in the evening? Absolutely. But if your job is so stressful that you would be the person, again, to Mike's point about personality, if you would be the person that would just be like, not a chance, like, what a horrible day, and you wouldn't have a workout at the end of your day, well, then there you go. That's your answer. So I think it's just looking internally realistically and being like, what can I do to fit this in? Like a parent who their only option is before their partner goes to work potentially and themselves, well, then there's your answer. 5:30 in the morning, you're working out. So I think
Mhm.
you just got to do like give yourself a little grace and do what you can when you can.
And I think I mean, you guys said it in the best way, where there's not going to be an exact time or an exact science. Like, so many people are like, "Oh, you're more explosive at 2 p.m. You're more that," and I'm like, listen, if you can't do 2 p.m., like, your explosiveness doesn't go out the window for the day. Like, let's be real, you can still lift and do all of the other things, right? But I also feel like that gives people the, oh, I guess I can't do it at that time, and
For
they
sure.
get those easy outs, right?
Yeah.
The activity is so underrated because it's one of those things where people genuinely think, like, over the span, like, they underestimate what can be accomplished in a year, and they overestimate what can be accomplished, like, as just showing up consistently all the time, right?
Mhm.
How many people do you find through your process and working with you, people who are like, they're in there like hell bent as many times as they possibly can be, and then they disappear off the face of the earth? How successful are they compared to someone who's like, I'm going 3 times a week for this entire year? What do you normally see with people like that?
I think we are. I like kind of like a micro gym. Like we're fairly small in our membership base. We're usually pretty good with managing those expectations. We do have some people, we call it like the F45 addiction, and it is real. You
Mm,
almost like never want to skip a day because the next day is so fun and intriguing. You're like, well, I don't want to have this like fear of missing out of what all of my gym members got to do that did go that day. So sometimes we just get ahead of it at our place where it's like, listen, you're coming 9 times in a row. Like, yeah, we need to add in some breaks. Like your body does need to recover. That's just as important. The more time that we spend balancing out the recovery with, strength training and the explosivity and all those things, we can only get better. Um, so we just try to help them find that consistency. And I think for each person, it is going to look different. So that's what we try to do with our job with like 30, 60, 90-day check-ins with members, is to make sure that there is a sustainable plan, because sustainability is key. If you are that person that's coming 7 days and then you do fall off for 7 days, well, yeah, you were better off if you just went every other day for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think to add to that is that what people sometimes get caught up in is worrying about the caloric deficit or worrying about just calories in general. And so if they don't work out on a certain day, they're fearful that they are going to put on weight again, or for whatever reason, because
mhm,
someone maybe in their life has convinced them of that. But I think people need to realize, like, if you can go 7 days a week and have the right amount of energy to dedicate to some of these, strength workouts, some of these cardio workouts that we do, then all the power to you. Because I personally can't do it, so maybe I need to check myself and and improve my own fitness level. But I think having those rest days is so crucial to building muscle, which is going to be the thing that helps you burn fat faster in the long run.
mhm. People underutilize the amount of rest that's actually needed, and they don't realize that, like, exercise is structured damage. Like, you're breaking yourself on purpose a little bit so you can kind of fix it to be stronger, but they just think, hey, if I just keep doing this, then it's going to build muscle. And it's so interesting that it's kind of like the opposite, right? Now you said something, Mike. So you talked about cardio. You also mentioned the strength training quickly. There are a lot of different types of routines, right? You've got HIIT training, you've got Tabata, you've got compound lifts, all of that stuff. And that can be a completely overwhelming case in itself. How do you guys utilize exercise? And what are some of those ones that you tend to kind of either favor or say are really beneficial for people when you're looking at their exercise and their routine?
Well, I think I'll start with this because I'm going to give the more basic answer probably from the layman, and then Julie can probably add a little bit more of the science
Perfect.
behind it.
Love
But
it.
but I think it's important for people to remember that at the end of the day, just like with a lot of things in life, balance of different things as opposed to a lot of one thing is so important. Andrew, you're a nutritionist, and so you would understand that most of all as it relates to certain foods. Strength training for I think Julie can say that science would back this up, is probably the most crucial part of someone's fitness journey when it comes to losing weight, as opposed to maybe the old way of thinking, which was you just got to go for a run and sweat and do cardio and burn calories. But at the same time, I think people who are trying to convince their clients that strength training is the only way to go are also kind of missing the mark, because you do need to balance that strength training with, a few hard cardio days where it's not all about lifting weights. It's about your pace and your cardiovascular and just burning those calories. So having a good blend. And then even within the strength training, there's a difference between a heavy lift day versus a lighter day, or a full body versus specific to lower or upper, push or pull, isometric holds versus just your usual tempoed lifts. So that's where my head's at as it relates to just balancing, is going to give you the kind of the overall blend. And our global athletics team at F45, which develops all of our workouts, they do a good job of mixing it up so that no one's ever, too comfortable, if you know what I mean.
Nice. Yeah, can't get comfortable, right? As soon as you get used to something, it's like, nope, psych.
Exactly.
I love it.
No, I feel like that wasn't necessarily for the layman. Like, when I look at our strength training and like what we're passionate about through F45 is we do like progressive overload, meaning we're going to fatigue those muscles by doing multiple sets in succession before we introduce a new exercise. Or we're doing a tempo-based, like time under tension. Also, it's going to help structurally break down those muscles. Or we're doing something like a superset. So alternating between two different exercises, which is another great way to fatigue and create that progressive overload. So that's like what we're into from a strength training side. And then cardiovascular, we'll see it all, like endurance-based. So yes, we do HIIT training, but I think sometimes HIIT training has a misnomer that it is like highest intensity all the time, whereas HIIT training is designed to be efficient because you're not taking crazy long rests and you're packing in your work time, like your total time that you are executing whatever the exercises may be in a short period of time, because your rest is limited and your recovery is limited. But it doesn't mean that it's like, we'll have days where you're working for 2 minutes at it, but that's more of like a steady state cardio, like jog pace. It's not an all-out sprint, like to your point when you talked about Tabata, whereas yes, we have other days where we're working through like 20-second sets. So every day when we come in, it is a different structure and a different approach, so that yes, the body isn't getting just bored, because you want to keep it fun and interesting, so you keep coming back and you see that progress, but two, that the body isn't just getting sort of complacent in knowing what's coming up next, and then you hit those plateaus too.
That's the big thing. Variable training is huge, and I love the fact that you guys mix in and alternate other different types, because it's so quick for a muscle to be like those most typical people. It's like every Monday is chest day, like every Thursday is leg day. They do 3 sets of 10 reps because that's what they were taught in like grade school, and that's literally it. And it's like everything that even both you and Mike shared was talking about. So like supersets, and this is another thing too. You don't have to like keep going heavier with your weights. Like you can superset to keep the same weights or change things up. So it's really about making sure that you're always challenging your body, essentially. Yes. which I think is really good.
And I'll add in, and this is for the stereotypical male out there, that adding more weight and just being able to lift the heaviest dumbbell is not your key to success. There are ways to make lots of exercises extremely challenging with a relatively light weight in most macho male kind of brains. So it's strength training is something that I've come a long way in, and because I definitely used to think that way. Like, you're 20 years old, you're in university at the gym, you just want to pick up the heaviest weights, and that means that you're strong. Not the
Yep.
case.
And then you have your rotator cuff injury, and then you get your knees hurt, and then your low back, and you're like, what is going on? That's the trifecta. Have you ever heard that? When your shoulder, your knee, and your low back all hurt at the same time, it's like the band is all together, like that's so I love that. I think that's a good thing. Now, we talked about a couple of areas from the exercise part, which is huge. Let's talk about stress and activity, because I feel like sometimes people use exercise too much as an outlet, where it gets to that point where maybe it isn't so good for them to do that. How do you know when your exercise is still benefiting you, or when your exercise is actually not helping you at a certain point?
I like to take the approach with like a lot of things, whether it's nutrition, exercise, is journaling. Connect how you feel, your energy levels, to what you're doing or what you're consuming, and you'll get a lot of answers. So if you're eating certain foods and you're feeling very energized and satisfied afterwards, that's probably what's right for your body, and it may not be what's right for the person next to you, but that's great. Same with exercise. If you're finding coming 5 times a week, you're completely gassed out. Maybe it's your tempo and your intensity in those 5 classes, or maybe it's the nourishment of your body isn't at a level for 5 classes in a week, and we need to change and tweak things there. So I think that there is such a thing as overtraining, but there are so many elements that come into play. Is like typically the first thing I look at is like, if you are feeling so fatigued for the rest of the day after doing exercise, something is wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean the exercise is wrong, but something is wrong, and you need to make that connection and just say, how, like, someone helped me learn from what can I do. So maybe it's the fuel before the exercise, maybe it's just fuel during, like generally speaking, that you're eating and consuming throughout the day. Or yeah, it could be the exercise itself, or you're pushing yourself too hard too often, especially with everything else you're doing in your day too. Kind of
Yeah,
my
and
general
I'll
approach.
add to that and just say the sleep, and which can also be journaled, of course. Are you getting the right amount of sleep as a result of whatever your current exercise and work routine is? If you've pushed yourself to get to the gym because you've made that your routine, and it resulted in you not getting there until 9 and not leaving until 10:30 or 11, and then you're having to wake up at 4 a.m., probably not the best decision. You probably would have benefited more from the additional sleep, especially if you had worked out the last 7 days. And then on the flip side, if you're sleeping too much, then to Julie's point, maybe you're burnt out, and too much sleep can be a problem for some people. So finding that sweet spot of, I don't know what the number of hours is exactly, but we'll say anywhere from 6.5 to 8.5 hours. It's a decently large range, but I think if you're consistently in that range, then you're within a healthy median.
I would agree. And I think that poses that very interesting topic of, how does someone become intuitive with their body? Because I used to think for the longest time that, like, what do you mean you can't like feel how you feel? But some people truly only think like, I better leave this workout with the muscle that I'm targeting sore. That to me is like success. Like if I do legs, my legs are on fire and I can't walk straight, that's like success. Like I did it, right? And to both of your guys' points, there's so much involved in that, where you have to look at the food, you have to look at your rep ranges, you have to be looking at the volume that you're doing. So I love that you bring that stuff up, because people will, and that also then leads back to that original point where, like, you can't be doing the same thing as somebody else, which is really
Absolutely.
important, right? When people come to you, how many things do they typically try, or what type of things are they doing on their own before they're like, you know what, I need to be led with activity, or I need some assistance from this front?
I would say the most common thing that we see is people doing a lot of cardio, because they're uneducated in what to do from a resistance or strength training component. So cardio, typically, if we look at like running, biking, any of those things, those are all great exercises and great forms of activity. But if that's your sole form of activity and it doesn't align to whatever your goals are, then you're not going to make material progress towards your goals. So I would say that's typically like when I hear people saying, maybe I have gained weight or this, that, and the other, whatever those reasons are for bringing them towards us, and we find out like what they've been doing previously and it not working. It's typically that, or them going to more of a traditional big box gym is what I would generally speaking call it, and trying to program something for themselves, because ultimately no one's expecting you to have all that education, those answers. Like, do you have a kinesiology degree? No, then you're probably not going to be the best at programming for yourself. Just like you wouldn't just pick a random person on the street to clean your teeth. Like, you want to have professional.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. And you wouldn't go to like a person to to prescribe you with like what your illness may be. You save that for a professional doctor. So like that is typically what I see, is just like people trying to figure it out themselves, and like huge credit to them for trying to figure it out. But when you're not seeing the results, that's when you just got to raise your hand and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to make a change, but I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. It gets to that point where like people do build up almost like an internal frustration, and then they carry that frustration, like how you show up mentally to your exercise and how you leave mentally, I personally believe plays a very big role in whether or not it sticks as a habit. Like if every time you go in, you have to drag your butt and you're like, oh man, I hate this. And through the entire exercise, you're like, this sucks. That's going to be really hard for you to repeat. Like nobody likes repeating things that they hate, or the vice versa. If you leave and you're exhausted, well, that sucks as well too, right? Because that's not going to be something that you want to repeat over and over again. So I agree with you. I feel that's a huge point.
Dopamine is the feel good hormone, right?
That is correct.
If you've released the right amount of dopamine in your workout, then you'll know it'll feel good, and maybe not immediately when the workout's done because you're probably tired, but 10, 15 minutes later, an hour or two later, when you're at your desk at work, if that's what you do for work, you'll feel good about your workout because you're finally rested, and you'll get on with your day and be more productive if it was a successful workout.
I love that. I think that's good. No, I always like to ask people, because, everyone likes to leave with some type of action step on the podcast. They're like, what's the next action step, Andrew? I'm like, not all of them have action steps, but if you guys had like 2, maybe 3 golden nuggets each of like exercise, whether it doesn't matter, whether someone novice, beginner, like what would be a couple of things that you would tell somebody to get started or get their exercise back on track with their routine, for example?
Who's first?
I know, I'm putting you guys on the spot.
I'll start with one nugget, and then we can maybe go back and forth. One for me is don't just pick one thing to do exclusively. Even myself, I exclusively do F45 right now as it relates to a fitness facility, but then I incorporate sports as my other form of exercise. So it doesn't have to be that exactly, but I would say you should have at least two things that you're doing in order to just keep your body active and not get too repetitive.
I like that.
From my perspective, I would say it takes a serious conversation. I mean, I think truly taking on and tackling a fitness routine when you don't have one right now, and as we talked about, most people are time strapped and don't understand where they're ever going to incorporate it. Well, that's your starting place. Is, I think, if you have a partner or your family, you need to basically say, this is my goal and I need to be able to do this. And success in this area looks like 3 times a week I get me time to work on myself. And whether that is someone that is, going for a run, or they are going into a gym to do something themselves, or they're going to a fitness class, it really doesn't matter. Whatever that success looks like for you, define it, and then work with the people in your surrounding that are going to actually help you achieve it. Because it's easy to say there's no time until you look at your calendar and you actually pre-plan, husband, you're going to do dinner tonight because I am going to go work out, or you're going to get the kids ready for school because I am going to work out. And I think I'm probably speaking more to the female populace, but I know that that is so hard because of what I see come in the gym is it can sometimes be after having kids, 10 years slips by before they realize, wow, how did I get here? How have I not moved my body for me? I've been so focused on family. So for me, I would just say set the goals and then have the conversation with the people that are in your corner to actually help you achieve the goals.
I love that. I want to continue with the tips, but you said something really, really powerful, that people tend to backburner themselves for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And moms are particularly bad for this, where it's almost a form of guilty giving, where like I will give my time because I feel like I have to be a mom. People use the title, and then the title brings these expectations when it's like, yes, you're a mom, but you also have your own life and there's also other things that you have to do, which is why I think communication is super important. Because if people don't communicate with each other and you're not communicating with your partner, or you're not having your family help you and you're just taking it on yourself, 10 years will go by, heck, 20 years will go by. And then you're like, oh, I regret not taking this time for myself. So I really think that that's an important point too. And I'm glad that you brought that up.
And I think to that point, it's like, if you're struggling with how could I take that 1 hour away from like time as a mom that I should be with my children, try to transition the conversation in your internal dialogue to like quality of time. So if I remove 1 hour of time, all my other hours with my children, if I have more energy, I can run around with them. I'm in a better mood. I'm not getting frustrated. I'm more present. I'm confident. I'm showing them a healthy lifestyle. Like, what better time will be now spent just by you investing that 1 hour in you, what you can now give back to everyone else in return. So it's just thinking through and changing the internal dialogue for sure.
Ooh, I love that dialogue talk. Nice.
And you know what? Here's my tidbit is dads, it's the same. It's 50%. It's 50-50. And whether you're a dad who's letting mom take the brunt of it, or maybe you're a dad who's working harder than mom, make it 50-50 because yes, to Julie's point, like she just rhymed off like 7 reasons why that hour for yourself is going to pay dividends. But she mentioned happiness and, you know, presence with your family, with your children. I think that's huge. And I definitely, in the last 15 months of having a daughter, have noticed in the months where I'm in my good kind of routine versus if I fall off a little bit. And you know, your mental state certainly changes in those moments. And it's very important to keep that in mind and realize the benefit of exercise and keeping yourself happy.
Mm-hmm. And remember too, like for those of you listening, you want to show up as the best version of yourself. Like I would hate if my parents showed up as like 20% of who they could be, because like that would probably not be a great experience for me. Right. So it's like you want to be able to have the best parent ever. And that means that you're going to have to be sharp. You're going to have to be on point. You're going to, you know, have to have exercise or that individual time for you to recharge and refill yourself. So that could be activity, that could even be adding in personal time into your routine. And that's another thing as well too, right? We're talking a lot about exercise today, but if you guys get like, if you don't have 15 minutes to breathe for yourself, we should like start that in alongside activity, because like that's really important to recharge your own headspace. So sure. I think that's really powerful. So we've got basically I've kind of changed up the order as I wrote them down, because then I wrote the thing. But so having a serious convo with yourself, which I think is good, doing different things, which to Mike's point, variety, not just, you know, get activity in ways that you like it, which I think that's good. Making sure that you're carving out time and planning in the schedule, and that you've got some more quality of time for yourself. Anything else? Any other golden things that people need to hear, but deep down they already know? Let's just call it out. Let's call a spade a spade.
Just do it. Just stop thinking about it and, you know, purchase the membership, book the first class, show up to that studio, make a phone call and ask a question, whatever it is that's been on your mind. You drive past a gym every day that you think, oh, maybe I could go there one day. I don't have time. Just call, just start. That will lead you down the right path. Because if it's not the right location for you or the right thing, then it's going to help you find it. Or you found the best place that's going to change your life.
There you go. My last one will kind of, you'll be able to speak to this one or agree with this. What they say is true, in that 50% of the effort comes from the kitchen. And so I know this not because I'm great in the kitchen. That's what Julie is very good at and consistent with.
You're good at eating, right? She cooks, you eat. That's the
well, but I just mean I'm bad at focusing on my nutrition. And I do, have a sweet tooth, and I do like my takeout food. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But as long as you're realizing that that's not going to give you the best results, and if that's your goal, then you need to make that change. It doesn't mean you need to eliminate things altogether, but again, it comes down to balance. You can't be overdoing it with that takeout. I eat a copious amount of ice cream and my McDonald's fix because I like it and that makes me happy. But that's okay. Gym owners can do that too, and I can stay in good shape because I'm still going to put in the work on the other 85% of the week in the gym and in the kitchen, because it really does start in the kitchen.
I like that, and it shows that you guys are human. I feel like a lot of health and fitness coaches are not real people, right? You see that sculpted, like they've dieted 4.5 weeks for a 10-second photo, and then they like exhale and everything just like changes, and then they go back into their routine. And it's like, no, people live regularly as well too, right? So I love the fact that you just bring up some realness, Mike, because like I go out to restaurants, again, you have to enjoy life, and I think that that's really important. So nice. Awesome. This was a fantastic combo. One thing as well, too, for you guys listening. So both Mike and Julie at their F45 locations, they've got a current intro promo offer that is going on, and it's going to continue essentially for the next month or so. You've got on here. I'll put some exact dates on there. Basically, as long as the link works in the show notes, the offer is going to be there. So this is my little kind of wake up moment. And we do this sometimes, right? Where I get really close to the camera and say, wake up. You got to go get some activity in. And these guys are phenomenal ways to do that. So you can go and you can check them out. You can either check them out at the F45 Stoney Creek Mountain location or the F45 Training in Ancaster. Both the links will be in the show notes. And then I will also drop either Mike or Julie's contact information in the show notes as well. So if you guys have questions on activity, if you're curious as to, what can I be doing, or again, what activity looks like through them and through their process, then I encourage you to reach out to them directly. Other than that, it was fantastic having both of you guys on the podcast. So
thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed. And yeah, conversation was super powerful. So the health and fitness aspect, it's so much more than just like go and put yourself through a workout, as these guys clearly said. So I appreciate all of your guys' time. Well, it seems I'm all out of info juice for today. That's all for this episode. And thank you so much for listening. Please leave a raving review for me if you've learned something good, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Now, if you're in the mood for some more great content and tools to get your hormones on track, why not check out our free Facebook group and the blog on our site. We do amazing weekly trainings in our group that me and my wife call Tea and Teachings that give good tips for anything hormones and metabolism related. It's also a great community where you get to share your goals and success with like-minded people just like you. I'll make sure to drop both the Facebook group link and the blog link in the show notes for you. Or if you're ambitious like me, the name of the group is Weight Loss and Balanced Hormones. It'll say Fit for All beside it with a picture of me. So come and join us and have more fun.